Hello and welcome to episode 69 of the Cutie Art Crusaders for Tuesday, October 69th, 2013. Welcome back, guys. My name is Rainbow Plasma. I'm the organizer and editor of this podcast. And today I'm joined by...
Burn-to-One, the special guest coordinator and stuff of the show.
And I am Edmaswak. I do the questions and the DeviantArt page.
So...
Although I haven't done it for a while.
I almost said I was editing,
kind of behind.
So I was laughing. It's like, I'm not editing.
Yeah, no, okay. You're not editing. This week, I am. But unfortunately, this week we're also missing a member. We are one short. Unfortunately, Flutterguy317 couldn't make it today. I believe he had some sort of college reunion? Do you guys...
College parties.
Do you guys remember?
Nah.
Nope.
I was doing something with his sister.
We're kind of awful friends, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
Then again...
Like when you go to do like holidays with your family, it's like Canadian Day.
Yeah, I'm also talking to the same people who said I was doing something Canadian last year during Thanksgiving, so, I mean...
Well, you kind of were.
I guess so, but...
So we weren't exactly wrong.
I guess you're technically right, but it was definitely not the thought that counted. Okay, so, hello everyone, welcome to the podcast. Do you guys have anything to say before we get into art? Because holy cow, there's like no news this week.
I played Magic. That was it.
What kind of Magic did you play, Burned?
This is really funny to me because I brought it up before the podcast and I was like, hey, can I talk about this? And he's like, I don't have anything to say about it. And then anyway.
That's exactly what he said.
You grumpy puss.
I played a legacy tournament last weekend on Sunday with 252 other players. It was a Star City Games Open, and I cashed, meaning that I placed, meaning that I took the top fourth or something ish. So I took top 64. I got my money back and then some, which was cool. It was a lot of fun though. Never played in like a big legacy event and done well. But yeah, that was it. It was fun. Go Magic.
Cool. So now that Burned has talked about his Magic session there, are you sufficiently savant-ified, Burned?
I am. I don't know what that big words means, but yes.
All right, cool. So this week we have art because we don't have a guest this week. So why don't we throw it to Burned? Burned, what do we have this week?
Me.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, no. The theme this week is Burned.
Yes.
Everything to do with Burned.
Can I do it?
Can you do Burned?
Yeah, well, yeah, that. Can I do Flutterguy's role?
Sure. Do you want to announce the theme?
Yes. Okay, so this week's theme is Cadance. We're doing Cadance Putty because we haven't done Cadance before. Mm-hmm. I think this may be the first dedicated princess episode. We haven't done Celestial Luna, have we?
Princess of the Night.
We did Princess of the Night, which is technically Luna.
Yeah.
But we kind of did like half Luna, half Nightmare Moon, so I guess you could
I'm gonna say it's the first one.
That's a pretty...
But yeah, no, we're doing Best Princess, wrong. Which is Cadance.
All right. I've wanted to do Cadance for a while just because she is my favorite princess and obviously best princess. And anyone who else disagrees can be banished. So yeah. I think that this week was a perfect time to do Cadance.
She's definitely the most intricate. Just something about having the most gradients just makes you superior to others, I'm pretty sure.
Pretty sure that's how it works, yeah.
Also, it's weird because I'm really not like a pink kind of guy. There's like traditionally speaking, guys pink is girly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just with like stereotypes and stuff, pink is girly, and so guys generally don't gravitate towards pink. But there's also like that subsection of guys that like openly proclaim their love for pink, which is cool, whatever. But I usually find that there's not a huge amount of middle ground, mostly because the middle ground is not vocal.
Yeah.
But I tend to find myself, I'm not really enamored with pink. I'm not a huge pink fan, but Cadance is really well designed, and I really like her design for some reason, even though all of her
colors... Especially for something that is pink.
Yeah, all of her colors are like pink, purpley pink, other pink, and yellow.
Yeah, like Pinkie Pie gets away with it because she's just absolutely crazy.
It's also in her name.
So she can really pull off the pink well,
Because she is over the top.
So it's like being pink is great for her personality being over the top.
Yeah.
Also, since I like to talk about art history, fun fact, back in older times, pink was actually a very masculine color and a very common color among boys.
Yeah. And then it was the opposite.
Yeah.
There was also a time when pink was considered a subsection of red, obviously, because pink is lighter red, and red was a royal color. Red was meant that you had a lot of wealth because it was hard to make things that were red, so red things were more expensive.
Not quite, almost.
I'm not exactly right on this, but on the same note,
almost. Go ahead, finish your thought.
On the same note, blue was considered a poorer color because it was that's kind of how it works. So it's interesting to see how colors
almost work. I think I still don't think that's technically correct.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to say you're wrong because I don't know for a fact. But what I do know through my knowledge of whatever is that blue was actually a harder color to come by because you had to it was made with what? Like legitimately back in the old days, it was made what is it? Lapis lazuli?
I'm pretty sure you're just talking about Minecraft.
Lapis lazuli.
So I think blue was kind of a harder pigment to make. Blue and red, I don't think they were expensive pigments. It was purple that was really considered the expensive pigment, because purple you actually had to go collect these very small, bright purple shells from along the coast of the Mediterranean, and then grind up these thousands of very rare shells from along the coast that you would find, and then make a purple pigment from that. So since it was so extremely hard to make and actually find the materials for a purple pigment, that's why purple was considered a color of royalty. And so purple, blues, and golds were very common colors among royalty, especially French royalty. But those are the expensive colors, and mainly purple is that one. But as far as red to blue, definitely. What was expensive to what was a poor color, I don't know anything that was considered a common color among poverty.
Well, I don't have a source for that.
There wasn't really back in the olden day, because if anything was being painted, you were rich. It had to do with vanity. If you could afford to get someone to paint something for you, or if you were painting something, you were doing it so someone would give you money to live, Well, I
wasn't necessarily thinking just from a painting point of view, but I don't remember the source in which I got the information of. I might just be confusing it with the boys and girls, flip-flopping. Whoa, hold the phone. Rainbow Plasma edit time. I actually, while listening to this conversation in editing, went back to my sources and checked online to see if I could find any mentions of reds and blues when it came to past colors and wealth and poverty and that kind of thing. And this is what I came across from the website that you'll see on the screen. I added a little link shortener there, so you can go check it out if you want to. It's got a lot of sources, but they basically summarize different colors in clothing over the Renaissance and medieval era. And even though there's a lot of vagaries in this is generally what people might have thought. And what it says here is that reds were usually a higher social status, such as royalty or men of justice. It meant a lot of power and prestige, and that's in the Renaissance. And even in medieval times, that was rich men wore reds. And you've got a bunch of colors down here, but when you get down to blues, I was incorrect. Blues was not a sign of poverty, and in a lot of places it meant, for example, a young woman who was available to marry. But in England, blue was the traditional choice for slaves or servants, not slaves necessarily, servants. So people who would serve royalty would wear bright blue clothing in the Renaissance. So that was probably what I was thinking, was that the royalty is red and the servants were blue. And what Bernd was thinking of was probably an earlier time before or early Middle Ages, perhaps, or sometime before that when purple was worn as a royal color. But for the most part, I think I am actually right here, where in the medieval times and in Renaissance, red was a sign of royalty and blue was a sign of servitude. That's everything. Anyways, we'll get back to our conversation. But like you were saying before, in the 19th century, so 1800 to 1900, it was flipped to what we have it today. And so pink was definitely a small boy thing. And I'm not sure if necessarily blue was a girl thing, but it was definitely that pink was a boy thing. And so it's interesting to see how that's kind of flipped. But rounding off this conversation.
Fun fact: blue is my favorite color.
All right then. That fact was fun.
Okay, so
we have fun here.
on to the art, right?
Yeah. So
onto the art.
Right.
Yeah,
so Cadance, if I may, let me just round it out here. Even though, traditionally speaking, nowadays, it's more focused on blue for boys and pink for girls, surprisingly, Cadance seems to grab my attention. And I think she's grabbed the attention of a lot of guys who wouldn't necessarily consider themselves fans of the pink.
I like pink horses.
All right, then.
I saw a burned horse the other day. It had a goatee. I laughed.
You texted me that, didn't you?
Like an actual IRL real horse in a farm.
Bird, what were you doing in Australia?
That horse liked me. It followed me around.
I was at work, and he texted me, like, I saw a burned horse today. It had a goatee.
That's right. I did text you that, didn't I? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to move on to the art. I'm gonna move on to the art because we're just talking about nonsense.
Speaking of pink ponies!
Speaking of pink ponies, our first piece is called "They May Not Ring for Me at All." ... by Meow, which we have featured before. Not this piece, but the artist.
Yes. I swear, it's weird because I swear we've mentioned this or featured it before, but it's not in any of our favorites folders. So if any of our fans out there have seen this on our show before, like maybe we mentioned it. I know we haven't featured it, but if we mentioned it before, then let us know which episode that is because we can't seem to find it. But I swear we've talked about it, haven't we?
See,
I seem to think we have.
Plasma Rainbow here is crazy because I can't remember any time we've ever like commented on this piece or even looked at it. Because there's not even that many times that we would talk about Meow. Like way back in the day, we would talk about like the Ender Pony piece that this artist did.
I think maybe the only reason why I'm being confused by it is because I saw that Ender Pony piece so many times, and so I would always go to the artist gallery and check up the other pony pieces.
When this piece was made, in April 22nd of 2012. So like that's a really big time frame that we could have seen or talked about this
right
piece.
after the episode came, the premiere Cadance episode came out. So
yeah.
So, anyways, Meow is got a great style that we've mentioned before on the show, but this piece is really interesting too because it has a lot of white space around it. It's got kind of like a semi background. It doesn't have a very clear. It's hard to describe. It has a setting, but it's not displayed overtly. You know, you've got this white space that's in the piece is actually in the physical piece. That's not just an editing thing that I put in the video. There is, in fact, the piece is white. And then it's got these, it's got the crystals coming out from the background, but that's the only semblance of a background there. I'm not sure what the technical term would. What would the technical?
I wouldn't. Sorry, go Bund.
I was gonna say that the technical term would be negative space. It has a lot of negative space surrounding the piece and surrounding the subject. That's what we would call all of that white, unactivated area around Cadance and a little crystal design that she's looking into. It's a very large area of negative space. The opposite, her and the subject, and like the crystal design being the positive space.
Well, yeah. The interesting thing is that it's used in the main piece itself. I mean, it is a background, but as you see on the right there, you've got the reflection of Cadance. You've got evil Cadance, Chrysalis, in the reflection. And then actual Cadance is like the focus of the piece. So it's like a semi background that comes into the foreground and it interacts with the characters. It's a really interesting, way. It's a really interesting usage of that kind of thing. And I've always described before. I love when artists do that, when they don't just take a traditional square piece and fill that in. When they get creative with the boundaries of the pieces. I really like that.
Yeah. Speaking of like kind of composition, I do also enjoy that it has what I'd call like a vertical composition, meaning that it has like a really strong diagonal line going across it, because like we're looking at this piece because it's very minimal, it's pretty small, it's pretty simple, and it's just kind of like a pony with a design on like a non-intricate background, just that white space, and instead of like being centered or off to one side or whatever, it does have this like diagonal sense that's kind of created by how there's a large amount of white in the top left and then bottom right, which is kind of cool. It makes it a little bit more interesting,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, going back to the whole white negative space type thing, when I'm gonna say Mio because the signature on the thing says Mio, so I'm assuming Mio is EAU, like the French, like you said earlier. So I'm gonna say Mio. I would say that when they made this, the background of the program they were using, whether it was Photoshop or Sai or whatever they were using, would have been white, so they designed it around that, so using the white negative space to blend in with the background, but DeviantArt has this like light greenish sort of color background and it wouldn't have worked. So I'm saying that's probably not like a frame or a background, it's just there because the green wouldn't have worked with the white negative space.
So something that I find really interesting is that while we've got the white background and then we've got these white parts of the piece as well. So we've got the reflections in the crystal, we've got the white in Cadance's eye, we've got all these different things that are also white. So they kind of go with the background, and I wonder if that's something that is put on top, like they drew the entire piece and then drew the white on top to add the reflections, or whether or not they kind of erased from the back. Because if they did that second case, then taking it off the white background, like you said, Piggy Dash, wouldn't look good, because then it would be green if you put it on the DeviantArt background, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm gonna say to back up the first one that you made, where they've made the piece and then maybe they've designed the background where evil Cadance is in the rock, it's like the reflection. Maybe they did that with the eraser. But if you look down at the foreground Cadance, the good Cadance, her wing where it goes over her right leg there, you can see there is a bit of a stroke there. So I'm thinking they've gone over it with the white at a low opacity rather than erased it.
Yeah. I would have to say that in this piece, I don't think anything is really erased. I would think that it's white painted over. And that spot that you noticed definitely leads me to believe that. And also, if you look at the tips of her hair in front of her face, you can also see how that white kind of trails off into the pink. So it could have been that she was using, or the artist was using an eraser that had like opacity on pressure and then was playing with that. Like, that's actually like perfectly reasonable. But this artist style really leads me to believe that she is painting the white, because the Mio, as you were saying, all of her pieces are very digitally painted. So if you look at all the work in her gallery, everything's really painted. And so like layers of color on color. So like the face of evil Cadance in, you know, like shining in the crystals, like that also doesn't really look painted to me. That also looks painted with like qualities of value or color or whatever. So I would definitely say that the like outlines of the white around Cadance is painted on, making the decision of the background being white conscious. Because if you look at all the rest of the other pieces in this artist's gallery, the background is always very conscious. It's always some kind of odd color or something. So like with a picture with Twilight, the background's purple, or picture with Luna, the background would be blue. And she has all these sketches of like the main six or the Cutie Art Crusaders, and they all have colored backgrounds. Everything has some color offsetting it from like the subject. So I don't think that Mio in this case would have just been like, you know what, paint will Sai as a white background, I'm just gonna leave it white. I'm pretty sure that was a conscious decision, and she started painting Cadance and the subject, and then kept painting in white to like go around the outline and stuff like that. So like but I'm basically giving the artist credit, because looking at the examples in all her other work, I see enough proof there to give the artist more credit than that she was just like, we'll do with white. I'm pretty sure that was like a decision that the artist would come up with, you know.
Yeah, and you know, now that you mention it, there's no point in using an eraser to create a transparency if you're not going to use that transparency, you know? Like, there's no point in creating a transparency here and then putting on a white background so it doesn't look like a transparency. You know, you might as well just paint over the top, right? So that does make a lot of sense. That's a good point.
There also is a quality in artists' work that some artists get lazy when working in a digital medium, and they use a lot of layers and a lot of transparencies and a lot of eraser tool. But when it comes to digital painting, sometimes it's more about painting a color next to a color. So like, let's say you're working with paint traditionally, you can't erase, you can't make something transparent. You have to add a color to fix something or paint next to something. So this artist does a lot of aspects like that, where the artist will put a hue or a color next to something else to counteract something. So like all of the like sketch lines and color on Cadance, they look like all those colors are filled in and the outlines aren't solid, if that makes sense. So like if you look at her wing, it's really prevalent in that the tips of the lower part of her wing are really like in some parts actually overlapping and going outside of the outline of her wing, where the artist painted color over the outline of her wing. So this artist is constantly painting color over color. She's working up the colors on her canvas in the digital program, what she's using. So that also makes me believe that, she's putting that white on the outside and outlining the character, because it is overlapping other parts and overlapping other colors, because she's working with the digital paint, as it were, just like colors on her digital canvas, because she does have that painting mindset, and rather than the like erasing and layer and technical mindset, she's the more traditional one. And I mean, that's there's proof of a lot of that in a lot of her work, even some of the ones we've talked about on the show.
Yeah, well, it's funny to me because we've always talked about the fact that I look at emotions in piece, and looking through the piece, I mean, taking no credit away from Mio, it's not something that's, the character itself isn't spectacularly done. Like you said, it's kind of, there's a little bit of messy things here or there. It's not, like a perfectly crafted piece. But it's funny because I look at it and I really like it. And I think it's just because the contrast between the two characters' faces and the emotions that they're exhibiting on it, which is really funny. But I think in terms of a technical level, I think something that is done fantastically well is that reflection. I think that's done tremendously well.
Yeah, I think all of us on the show have kind of come to enjoy that more sketchy, looser style. In pieces, especially like this piece being the example, rather than like the really clean cut perfectionist piece. But I do know Flutter Guy, who can't be here, really loves that, perfect 3D, super like tight digital brushwork and stuff like that.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I love that as well. But this is also great. Just looking at it, the more I look at it, the more I think this is not Cadance being free, but this is more Cadance inside the cave, and evil Cadance is looking through the crystal at her from being free.
Yeah, I get that as well.
Evil Cadance is happy, so she wouldn't be happy if she was trapped.
Yeah, he's got the evil laugh. And also...
Yeah, so she's looking through the crystal.
Yeah, and more proof to that is her hair. If you remember, her hair in this piece it's not perfect, it's all mussy, messed up, and it's like a little frazzled in areas.
Yeah.
So there's still that sense that she's trapped, because if you remember the episode, her hair was all mucked up and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, so we're in the prison with Cadance, which is kind of cool, which explains why she's crying.
Yeah. I remember you mentioned the emotional side, and I do like this piece for that sense too, is like that sense of emotion. I mean, you can really tell that Cadance is like sad pony, and she's like trapped in here, and those like super thick white tears all over her face. Like you get that, it helps that feeling more,
Yeah. They definitely got some weight to them.
I think the word you're looking for is viscous. They're very viscous.
That's a big word.
Which is like a thick liquid.
That word's too big.
Viscosity is like thick liquids. But you can use big art words, but you can't understand viscous.
Yeah. Well, anyway, next piece.
Okay, so moving on then. Okay, so the next piece is called "This Day" by Avanteth.
And I advocated this one for a couple of reasons. I believe, this is one of the pieces. There was another piece that we couldn't have in that had a really nice compositional split, and as a compromise, I like to have this one in because this has kind of the same thing. I like when we have these very artificial splits in pieces, using something. In this one, it's got a big crack down the center, and we're seeing the split between Cadance and Chrysalis, the good and the evil in that episode. We've seen it before when we had a Reflections episode. There was definitely, it was really well done, but it was also part of the scene. But I also like seeing these splits in composition be done very artificially. This like line down the middle is not within the scene. There's not this sudden black crack in the middle of nowhere, and on the right we've got them, and they're both staring at each other. Like that is something that is done within the medium. And I actually really like that. I'm not sure if you guys do, but yeah, kind of comic-y. You're right. But sometimes it's not smooth either. Sometimes, people can be really creative with how they split it. Like it won't just be like a line. It'll be like this one is like a crack, almost like, like a rocky crack. I've also seen like flames and other things splitting them.
Yeah. Do you remember the artist we featured? It was an episode you were on, but it was that very... Oh, it was the Rainbow Dash piece with the Wonderbolts. The Wonderbolts piece with Rainbow Dash, where they were like flowing and swooping, doing the big spiral.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes.
That artist does a comic book, and how the artist separates panels is using a very organic style. So everything is like swooping and making crazy curves, almost dreamlike and surreal. Because you remember that sense of like swooping and spiral that the Wonderbolts did?
Yeah.
She'll use that, but then organically and smoothly transition from panel to panel, not really using something like a crack or an object or like a thing, like a lightning bolt, crack, or a line. She'll use it with characters or or what the character is doing, but something way more creative, and it's actually warped into the piece and the subjects that she has painted on her like comic panel, rather than something as simple as just a crack or a illustrated line. Mm-hmm. She doesn't illustrate the separations between panels.
Right.
So it's more creative usage of separating things.
Well, sometimes the organic stuff can be a little bit too over the top, and it can be a little bit distracting. But if you do it well, then I think it's really good. I mean, I'm a huge fan of big cracks. So anyways, getting back to this piece, that's the focus. This piece has also got, like you were saying, the last piece is a little bit messier, and we don't have those outlines, which I think is really interesting. Because I've seemed to, like, recently I've been really into the non-outline stuff. Maybe it's because we had Celebi Yoshi on, but the whole non-outline thing is really kind of catching my fancy lately.
Celebi Yoshi-esque.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I do like that kind of just drawn, painted style. Because, I mean, it's more painty. It looks more like they painted the characters and they didn't worry about outlining them or illustrating them,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It does have that interesting sense.
Another fun fact, I made my first non-outlined vector last week.
Fun facts.
By the time this comes out.
Fun fact, me.
Fun fact, the platypus is poisonous.
God's sakes. Not having animal facts
also
on the show.
Also is a mammal
that
lays eggs.
No, stop. No more platypus facts? Yeah, no. My goodness. Something that I wanted to bring up, and I want to see if you guys agree with this. So there's no outlines in this piece, so the artist had to use other methods to kind of make the ponies stand out from the backgrounds. But there is a noticeable difference between the two sides, and it's how they stand out from the background. While Chrysalis, being that dark bluey green and the black, she very much matches her background, and therefore it kind of creates this ominous black side. And then the right side, we've got Cadance, who has the deep blues in the back, but then she pops out of it with her pinks and her purples. And I don't know why, but I feel like that pop gives it more of a like a heroic feel, whereas that where like on the left-hand side, she's kind of like seeping into the background,
More villainous feel.
Yeah. So is that would you have you guys ever felt that like the more popping out would be like the more heroic, and the more seeping, like lurking, is more villainous?
No, I mean, that's described really well. That's exactly the kind of sense I get, where when something's popping or high contrasting, it's kind of in that face, heroic, standing up above, to where when something's kind of more receding or in the background, it does give that sense of, skulky, villainous, more ominous. Because when we think of, like, those descriptive terms we're using, heroic, we think of something that is boastful, that is strong, that is out there. And when we think of something that is evil, inherently evil, we think of something dark and something like deeper in our subconscious, So there is that sense of recession and like coming or being forward or popping out, just like in this piece.
Yeah.
And that does actually really exist, and that's a good observation. And it's because Cadance has such a high contrast, especially to the colors around her. So since her surrounding colors are that really deep blue, being bright, bloody pink in her hair and in her coat color and wings, she really does pop out and like come forward in the piece. Where Chrysalis, how she is that darker green of almost pretty much the same color as the stuff around her, she does tend to recede, and go or kind of sink into the piece to almost where like her body is nothing. It's kind of just cut out blackness in the piece. And you get that sense because the thing she's standing on and the color above her is the same color as her body. And the artist actually did something really creative in that he made that teal, or I don't want to call it teal, you might get mad at me, but that green glow behind her legs of gives her that sense of where she's kind of popping forward. And then that really bright green outline on the back of her leg is also really cool and well done. And then her hair and wings also make her kind of pop forward and make it so she doesn't look like this just black shadow that's the same exact color as the background. So it was creative usage to make the character actually look like a character, but it is really dark, really receded, and kind of looming in the background there.
Yeah. It's making the character stand out without standing out. Separating the character without having her pop out of the background, quite like Cadance does.
Yeah, it's still visually discernible, and we can still tell the character is there, and the character's not hidden, but there is that real strong sense of the character is evil and like looming, which is it's a nice touch. I mean, it's another like artistic choice, because if Chrysalis was really like popping forward and really bright and high contrasting, again, it would give a different sense to the piece and different feeling to the piece.
Right. So, as a self-proclaimed Cadance fan, there is one thing that I'm not super keen on, and that's the gradient in her wings. It's just, I don't know, it's a little bit strange to me, and sometimes it doesn't always work. Sometimes it looks good. Like, I think it's when she's got her wings folded up, it looks good, but it looks kind of strange when they're unfurled.
Things that are different scare me.
Yeah, but in this piece, I think it's done so well. I love the fact that she's got like almost like normal little like Pegasus like pink wings, and then her like larger would it be like more primary feathers?
Wingtips?
Yeah, but it's almost like there's feathers on top of them. Like it's not the end of the
layered,
pink flare.
you know?
It's not the
They're layered.
the
feathers.
purple isn't at the end of the pink feathers. It's different feathers that stretch out farther. So we have that like layers. So we have the layer of purple and the layer of pink. I really like that. That looks so good.
I can dig it.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand why they can't do it in the show because they don't have that many layers and it would look weird to have like mostly purple wings, but I really like this one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the standard Pegasi in the show do have something like that, but it's not as pronounced as this.
Yeah.
Like if you look at, for example, Rainbow Dash's wings, you can see they've got that big outline around the outside, but they've also got that little internal detail, which shows that there are individual feathers there. It's just not standing out because the animators, it would take a lot more to animate.
Yeah, and in the show, if you tried to do like if you tried to make the big ones purple and the small ones pink in the show, then the little ones are too little. Like it would be impossible to do in the show. So I can understand why they did it, but like I really like as an artistic style the way that they did it in this piece for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Something else I wanted to add earlier, the color thing where you got the popping out and the receding. I was wanted to say it's not just the fact that Cadance pops out, it's also the brighter colors will make you think more heroic and more good, whereas the darker colors, it's like the angles and rounded. Like the angles will make you look more villainous. It's the same with darker colors. Like I challenge you to think of a good guy in a animated movie or TV show which is dark colors. It's not very common at all.
There's lots of anti-heroes that are more like dark and ominous. I mean, that's really common in a lot of anime. But if you're talking specifically about like Disney film heroes or something that's very lighthearted in context, then it's very hard to find something along those means because we do associate, more bright, friendly colors with things that are nice qualities.
But here's one more thought that I wanted to give to you before, because we have to move on to the next piece. But here's one thought. So you just said there are plenty of anti-heroes out there that have these darker colors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that your own bias by calling them anti-heroes?
Technically, I don't know the actual description of the term anti-hero.
No, but no, it's perfect. No, that is absolutely correct. By saying anti-hero, you are being correct, and it does fit. But it's just funny that you mentioned it's like, oh, there are heroes, but they're anti-heroes. So the color thing still applies because they're darker, therefore they're anti-heroes. It was just something to think about a little bit, but we do need to move on to the next piece.
We do need to move on. Okay, so the next one I've got here is called Miyamore Cadenza by Maucha.
Holy cow, that's red.
Yeah, it is.
So red.
So very red.
So much red. Very regal.
I actually like the art. Sometimes I really don't like saturated pieces, but I like the artistic choice in this piece, if it was a choice or if it was, just something that happened. We actually came to find out recently that sometimes artists just do things and they happen, or certain, tendencies. But I like how saturated this piece is. I like how in your face it is. And there's not a lot of pieces that are like that I enjoy. But this piece, it is extremely saturated. I mean, I have quite the monitor, and it is very in my face. And I think that's kind of the purpose of this piece, you know, because you're looking at it, and it is mi amore credenza, the princess of love, so to speak. And she is, I mean, there's hearts in the background, and everything is red. There's rose petals on the ground, which again, you know, tends towards that more romantic princess of love kind of theme, you know. And so
that facial expression.
Yeah, and the expression. So that sense of really being super saturated in your face does give that kind of more like lustful, robust redness in the piece, which does like lend itself very nicely.
Yeah, and you know, it something that I wanted to bring up with this piece. You mentioned that it was super saturated, and I mean it absolutely is, but in other super saturated pieces, it's always been like one part of the piece sticking out and being super saturated, but it's almost like because all of it is super saturated and because there's a transition from super saturation to normal saturation, it's not as bad as like when you look at, well, it's not bad, okay? But you know,
it's not eye piercing.
Right, it's not as eye piercing as some of the other things that we've seen because the artist knows what they're doing with the super saturation. They know that it's going to hurt if you do too much. So they have lots of transitions and they use it everywhere so that it evens it out the piece more.
Well, see, what's really cool is that there are some areas to me that are almost eye-piercingly saturated, like near her cutie mark, and then in her head and in her hair, and especially like her wing. So there are those areas of extreme saturation, but it's offset by areas of very low saturation and areas of that are darker. And again, that's stuff having to do with value and stuff we actually talked about in the last episode when I was bringing up those fancy Italian words like tenebroso and whatnot, that there is this really deep, dark area in the piece being offset by a very bright saturation. And what that does when you have that really bright area of high contrast, it helps create that focus and it helps you focus on the subject. And it has a very theatrical quality, because that's what like highlighting something does. So like Cadance being very bright and popping and in your face does a lot to really like highlight her and give this more theatrical popping sense. I don't know if that makes sense what I'm trying to get across, but how the piece is made and how bright and saturated she is, it doesn't come across badly done or painful because of the entire composition of the piece and how there are things offsetting it and how it's clearly done for a purpose besides just that, oops, I made her colors too bright. Her colors are like clearly purposely supposed to be bright because there are other areas in the piece that aren't really saturated and aren't super bright.
Yeah.
And they were obviously made that way on purpose.
Yeah. And there's almost a natural aspect to the brightness too, because you can tell that it's like red light coming in. It's not like she's suddenly super saturated. It's like there's being this saturated red light that's being shone upon her.
Yeah, like the whole image here is red.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't, like even though there is, you know, like that really, really, really bright purple there in the wing and in her tail, the whole thing is red. There is nothing but red, except for her cutie mark. Now you want to talk about popping? Look at that cutie mark.
Yeah.
It's got that really, really bright outline around the gem and then black in the middle. So it really, really stands out.
It does have that really extreme sense of contrast. And like we've mentioned on the show, that really bright blue is a color complement or opposite of those really bright reds and pinks.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I'm going to talk about emotions because that's all I do on the show.
Very emotional.
I think it's a really good point to bring up that a lot of these colors, these super saturated colors, translate very well into the emotional side of the piece. A lot of the times when we talk about emotions and stuff, I talk about facial expressions. Sometimes they're really over the top, you know? You've got a lot of like happy faces or sad faces or body positions that give away all of these emotions, and they're very easy to see. But what this piece does is it takes a very subtle emotion and it takes a very subtle kind of facial expression and body position, and it shows the intensity through the colors. Another example of that would be like, it's hard to describe, but imagine a stoic, heroic figure. So someone who's got a neutral face, but you can see the battle scars on his face, and you can see his environment, and because of the situation, the almost lack of emotion tells you more about what's going on. And in this piece too, she's not doing anything overtly. There's little things, she's got her back straight, she's got her chest out, her head's down, obviously her eyes. But then that's not, anything spectacular. But then you get hit with the color, and so you can tell there's something underneath the surface that's bubbling up.
Yeah. So that's an awesome point. So it's like all the emotion in the piece is really packed into the color and like what the color does to the viewer emotionally. And I was gonna say a good contrast, and like the point you were making is like if it was a sad piece or a more melancholy piece, if you would make it something like a deep blue, we would obviously get that like that feeling of sadness. In a lot of pieces we've featured that where it has more of a higher saturation of blue or cooler colors, it does lend itself to be more sad or morose or whatever. So this piece, like you were saying, it is all about that extreme saturation of red and that deep, like it's extremely romantic sense of red,
Right. And then, I mean, it's there's all these subtle things, and then the artist put roses on the floor, but
Yeah. Well, it's the warm color versus cold color thing as well. Like that's the emotional side of it. The warm colors versus cold colors. It's a very, very warm piece. I also wanted to say that it's also very reminiscent of like a royal family portrait painting, because you've got the figure by herself in the center, plus you've got some royalty sort of stuff in the background. So, like if you go and Google royal family portraits, you can see it's very similar to this. Like you've got the character right in the middle, plus some stuff around her, which will show that they are royalty. Like I just spent like a couple of seconds looking something up there.
The only thing that's missing is the head is at a 1/2 view, when if it was like a royal painting, it would be at a 3/4 view.
Right.
3/4 view. Excuse me.
Right. Yeah.
But other than that,
perhaps it was a personal photo that Cadance took.
Yeah. I was gonna say
this would be like in Shining Armor's wallet or something.
Yeah, exactly. More like Shining Armor's entire wall. But I was going to say a nice touch I like in this piece is 1, the roses, but 2, I really love that heart on the flag in front of her, because that's kind of like her crest, her symbol, of just like a princess that is a heart, or like it's a alicorn in an art. Heart. Heart, alicorn, alicorn, heart.
And a heart.
Alicorn.
But yeah, it's mirroring her posture, with the kind of like the head down, like tilted forward. And I mean, so she's presuming that same position, she's mirroring that picture of the heart there. Her chest is kind of out, her head's down, and it's mirroring that heart shape. I keep using the word mirroring because that's really important. It's a mirrored shape, and that's important for composition, like things that mirror each other, or reoccurring shapes or contours. So I was going to say that's a nice touch, and it helps you lend, oh, this is the Princess of Love, because, there's her symbol and it's a heart, and it's mirroring her and looks like just like her likeness, if that makes sense.
God damn it, Burned.
What?
I was just like, through this entire thing, I kept coming up with things in my head and going, oh, I should talk about that. But in the back of my head for this entire piece, there was talk about the fact that she mirrors the crest. Talk about the fact that she mirrors the crest. And it was like just on the tip of my tongue, and I was like, oh, I should let Burn go first.
Yes.
Welcome to my life. You 3 do this to me all of the time.
Maybe we should speak up more.
But yes, it's almost as if she is projecting a shadow that matches the thing behind her, which is really cool.
I would talk up more if you actually took a breath between words.
All right, well, speaking of taking breaths in between words, we need to take a breath before we move on to the next piece.
The next one is called You're the Song of My Life and My Love by John Hazeko.
That's adorable.
Aww.
So, JJ, after the season 2 finale aired, JJ put up a couple of pieces. He put like 3 or 4 of Cadance, because Cadance was the hot thing at the time, and everybody liked making pieces of Cadance.
Ain't no thing.
But a chicken wang.
Thank you.
So we were kind of conflicted. A lot of the times when we're confronted with themes, we tend to avoid artists such as JJ, because JJ is kind of, it's kind of self-explained. Everyone knows JJ, and part of our show is exposing artists that we don't normally see. But John Ozeko has also done a lot of fantastic pieces of Cadance and Shining Armor, and we thought it would be amiss to exclude him out of this episode because he's made something. A lot of the times, JJ makes a lot of stuff that's cute and or well done, or the backgrounds are good. You know, it's something that everyone can enjoy. But there's the things that he made with Cadance and Shining Armor had this underlying tone of like much deeper meaning and much more emotional weight to it, which I think he should be commended for it, because I think he did a good job with it. And this piece is one of the examples of that.
He said he made this one after listening to a whole lot of love songs. So that's probably where the
right. Yeah. Obviously, I think he was getting a little bit sappy. You know, he
I think so.
He did produce like 2 or 3. The one that we were going to do, but we ultimately decided on this one. There was also another one which is called Morning Mi Amour, and that's where Shining Armor is sleeping and Cadance is waking up and staring at him lovingly and things like that.
Part of his morning series. He's pretty famous for his, waking up ponies.
Mm-hmm. So that was an addition to it too. But we decided on this one, and I think this one's got a little bit more background to it. It tells its own story through the background.
The background definitely does tell a story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's that the background's that very like almost stereotypical love song background, like clothes coming off or red wine.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty much the lyrics to a love song.
Exactly. I can only imagine right in front of them is a fireplace. Even though the light,
pretty sure that's what's illuminating them.
Even though the light doesn't really match it, it would just fit the theme too damn well.
It's simple lighting, A lot of JJ's pieces, especially these pieces, are made extremely quick because he is an extremely quick artist when it comes to sketching.
Right.
So he just adds the color, the shading, and bam, he's done in like 5 minutes.
I would like to point out that when we say quick, it doesn't mean bad. A lot of people can say quick and they'll be like, oh yeah, it's done quickly. We don't say that. It's just a different style.
You will see, one of the reasons why sometimes I also avoid JJ is that his pieces, while being extremely good, are made extremely quick because he can pump them out with high amounts of skill and also high amounts of speed. But when he does stop, slow down, and take his time to put a lot of detail and effort into his piece, like the prints of his hanging on my wall right over there, they look extremely amazing.
Yeah.
So like his Gamer Luna prints that he sold at conventions, or like the cute Fluttershy one on my wall, or the one that I gave to Flutter Guy, they are extremely detailed and extremely well done, and they do have that forethought of like color and environment or whatever. But a piece like this, it's pretty simple in its aspect, and it's done really quickly, and it's extremely cute with the 2 ponies, and it's done again extremely well because JJ is an experienced artist and knows what he's doing. And he's a very experienced horse artist. Right. He knows how to draw them horses.
It's funny that you said like the ones hanging up on my wall, and I laughed at that. And then I looked up and went, "Oh right, I've got 2 of them hanging up on. I've got both Gamer Luna ones hanging up on my wall. I completely forgot that those were JJ."
You're welcome, sir.
I
guess because it's just
JJ?
That's such the 2 Gamer Luna pieces are JJ, and they're just like so different in terms of detail. But like now that I see it, it's like, oh yeah, of course. But yeah, there's definitely there's a difference between when he sits down and puts a huge amount of time in. But I think this piece, if I may just quickly, I know you want to say something, Joel. But
I also have a JJ one.
Yeah. But this piece, while I think it looks like he did spend lesser time than say the Gamer Luna pieces, more of his professional pieces. I think emotionally and mentally, he spent more time than on some of his other pieces.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
I think there's a weight to this piece that perhaps is not in some of his other pieces. Maybe that's just the subject matter.
Well, I think it's everything from their expressions, like her smile, the glimmer, like in their eyes, even is kind of over accentuated in some of his other pieces.
Yeah.
And then the lighting in the background, and then the background's red wine and stuff's pretty simple.
Yeah. Yeah, like you're saying, just the expressions. It's just, it's something I don't see very much, and that is just that pure expression of love. And I mean, Cadance is the princess of love, or whatever you want to say. But that is, in this piece and in the other piece of his when they're waking up, he really, really nails that emotion, and that is not emotion that it's easy to do, and it's probably one of the emotions I see see well done the least. So he did that one so well in this piece.
JJ's really good at capturing that because he does have a really good understanding of, what is it? Expressions and stuff like that, especially when it comes to characters.
Yeah. That's definitely...
I actually think when you were saying really captures the expression of love, I think that other one that you mentioned, Morning Mi Amor, does it better.
That almost seems like a different kind of love.
It's almost, that...
Because it's like the other one was almost like a strong sense of romanticism. And
I would say this one, You're the Song of My Life and My Love, is more romantic, and the other one is more love.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
That would make sense. It's just two different... It's... The Morning Mi Amor one is a reminiscing kind of love. It's a looking at someone and getting flashbacks to everything that's happened, what it means to you, what they mean to you, that kind of thing. Whereas the one in the You're the Song of My Life, that one's more of a in the moment, sharing an experience with the person that you love.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the Mi Amor Cadance one, not the Morning one.
No. Sorry. Morning Mi Amor. But yes,
because I thought we were talking about the one we previously featured.
No.
Last piece.
But yeah, like I said, one of them is an in the moment. The one that the piece that we're featuring is an in the moment personal connection between the two of them, and the other one is more of a reminiscing / memories. Obviously, she's seeing him sleeping, and she's getting these flashbacks of their time together and all the things like that.
Look at that smile on their faces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's really good.
It's much more innocent,
right?
Like in the what is it? You're the Song of My Life or whatever one. With the wine, like they're both blushing.
Mm-hmm.
So like they've obviously probably been drinking red wine for a while,
and they're both kind of goofy and they're both kind of smiling. And it's just like I said, it's a different type of
kind
love.
of romanticness.
Romanticness, romance is a type of love, and I wouldn't say that the morning piece is necessarily romantic. I would say the first piece is romantic. The second piece isn't necessarily romantic, but they're both two similar types of love.
I get that. See, this is why you're the emotion guy.
Yes, and it's also a personal. It's everybody looks at things differently, so it's only my personal viewing of it, but that's the way I see it. It almost, if I may, maybe this might help people understand, but the morning piece seems more like a husband and wife, and the You're the Song of My Life seems more like a boyfriend girlfriend. See?
Mm-hmm.
That might fit a little bit better. Okay, anyways, we've talked about emotions enough, so much that I'm satisfied for the day.
I am drowning in sappiness.
Completely satiated. So I guess questions now, right?
I guess so, yeah.
We probably should have asked for questions that had to do with love, but we didn't.
We should have.
Rainbow Plasma, tell me what love is.
What is love?
Baby,
what is love?
Don't hurt me. Questions!
Okay, questions. First question. If you could pick any one of the main six for a hug, but only one, also including Lunia, Celestia, and Spike, which aren't main six characters, which would it be?
Yeah, what the heck?
By Scribble, what words?
He was like, pick one of the main six, and or these three other characters.
Pinkie Pie. Pinkie Pie. Because her hug would last forever. Also, you may not come out of it alive.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
So it would last forever, technically.
Because then you die.
Yeah, right.
That's not very heartwarming.
Burned.
It's very dark.
Burned, are you having the same problem that I'm having? Which is that, like, both of our favorite ponies in the main six are Rainbow Dash. But she's not a very huggy person. So...
Dressed up like Scootaloo.
I wouldn't necessarily say... This is harder than I thought it would be.
Well, see, I had this kind of struggle when you were thinking about, like, kind of like the emotion of a character who you'd rather, like, have a hug from or something that's kind of more lighthearted. Another question I saw was, like, if you could pick one roommate that had to be the main six, who would you choose?
Yeah.
And it's just like, I had that same kind of
Pinkie
thing where
Pie.
it's like my favorite pony's Rainbow Dash because she's awesome, but she'd probably be a horrible
Yeah,
roommate.
yeah. It's not necessarily
So
pick favorites. It's pick the best for the role. You know.
Yeah.
Pinkie
yeah,
Pie.
exactly.
Pinkie Pie. Pinkie Pie. Pinkie Pie. Always Pinkie Pie.
See, but I'm not a big fan of dying. So
Murder
Yeah,
by
but she
Pinkie
lives in
Pie
a
hug.
bakery, so she'd know how to keep stuff clean.
Sure, I'm sure there's been several several scenes in My Little Pony where she's just like super squeezed the crap out of her character,
yeah, it's
and where they're like they do that cartoony thing where they're like inflate or whatever.
yeah.
Oh, and there's the scene where she hugs is Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash, and they're like, "Ugh," and like their spines like bend.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that I don't have a cartoon spine that can just bend willy nilly.
I think
Well, if you live with Pinkie Pie, you'd become a cartoon character. Because that's what she does.
That's true. I think I would say Twilight, but mostly just because she's adorkable and I would want to give her a hug.
I feel like she'd give you that really awkward dorky hug.
Yeah, but then it would be like, because like
cover
awkward
hand
dorky
hug
hugs
almost.
are good though, because then they also kind of hug you really
Yeah, if you're
tightly
a
too,
dork.
because they want to hug you really tightly. Whereas like
No.
if you were hugging Rarity, she would give you this really prissy hug, and if you were hugging Fluttershy, then it would be this like really light thing that would be like, all right, well that was okay. But I feel like Twilight would be more like adorkable about it. Maybe it's just my
Speaking
own
of-
bias, but you know.
Speaking of long hugs,
She would be the more. I think she'd probably be the most likely to hug you back.
that's
apart,
true.
apart from Pinkie Pie.
That's true.
Apart from
Yeah.
Pinkie Pie, because she'd just like squeeze
Yeah.
you. But I imagine if you're gonna hug Twilight, and like the moment was right, like you're not just gonna run up like Twilight and it's like grab her. If it was like a mutual, I like you, I'm gonna hug you, she's gonna hug you back.
Yeah.
Like Fluttershy would be scared, so she wouldn't really do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Applejack would be too busy thinking about other stuff. I don't know. Same with
only
Rainbow
on
Dash.
a brony
But-
podcast do we talk about hugging
Yeah,
the
this is
main
getting
six.
weird. Can we stop analyzing this? Burn, say your
No.
answer and let's move on.
No, we're not
Burn.
done yet. I was gonna say, speaking of long hugs, at BronyCon I got like a 5-minute hug from an artist.
Oh, that's
That was cool. Shout out
That
to
seems
you.
awkward.
You know who you are.
Interesting.
It's a great hug.
Interesting.
If you watch this, but yeah, it was very interesting.
All right then.
Let's see. If I had to hug the main six, I'd probably, if you want me to get my answer with quickly, I would say Rainbow Dash. Just because she is awesome, so I'd have to imagine the hug would be awesome. So that's my choice.
guess that-
I'd go for that.
I guess that makes sense. But
I guess that does make sense.
that
Would she hug you for like 5 minutes for like an Academy record?
Yeah.
Sweet.
next
Dang it,
question.
Pinkie Dash.
Okay, so next question. What type of pet do you think your OC would have if they had one? By Metty Boo Boo.
Don't say a bat or I'll cut you.
Burned. Do you wanna go first?
What kind of pet would my OC have? Probably something that flies.
Why wouldn't it be a bat for you?
Because he is a bat pony.
Dang it.
He wouldn't keep his kin as pets.
It's only halfkin.
It's like keeping your sister in a cage or something. Like you're not really gonna do that.
Burned is like my pony brother, and he's in a cage.
That makes sense. But do you keep him there as a pet or just because?
Oh yeah, definitely.
What? He's there as a pet? Yeah.
Oh, Burned, does your cage need cleaning?
Shut your mouth.
All right. Because neither one of you seems to want to give an answer, I will give an answer, which is first of all, I really like things that can fly, so that would be cool.
Phoenix.
But I think I would go for like a small fast bird. What was that? It was like a peregrine falcon.
Peregrine falcon.
Yeah. I'm
You know why I know that? Because that's exactly what I was gonna say.
well. I stole your answer, so peregrine falcon.
Suck it. You should pick.
Well, I was gonna say peregrine falcon, so
Pinkie
I'm gonna
Dash.
choose a falcon because
Regular falcon.
yeah, there are different kinds of falcons.
Yeah.
I chose falcon because my character, which is what this question is about, is a Pegasus. So I would like a bird that could fly and keep up with me.
Oh, you know what?
Uh,
Here. Let me.
What about? Hey, Pinkie Dash.
Hmm?
What about? Or I mean, Atmos Spark. What about? What about Zapdos?
I think you're funny.
Zapdos, for God's sakes.
Zapdos would be cool.
Because you
Yeah,
have a
so for
lightning
those who
cutie
don't
mark.
know, I've actually started playing Pokemon this week. Last week. Which is something I've never, ever wanted to do.
Yes.
You're saying Rainbow
I
Plasma?
started playing it because my roommate has a spare DS with Soul Silver, so I'm playing that, and I'm loving it.
Mhm.
Update in the life of Pinkie Dash. Atmos Spark.
What I was gonna say was,
Yeah,
if you wanted to take
think you're funny.
Peregrine Falcon, because you were mentioning OCs, and so I think that is a fair thing to say. I think I would change mine to be a phoenix, because my OC has to do with temperature, and so I should probably have a pet that I won't be afraid that I'll accidentally burst into flames.
Nailed it.
Because phoenixes
I love you so
burst
much.
into flames.
No!
Yeah. So Pegasus or phoenixes burst into flames anyways, so I think we'll be safe. So I'm gonna go with phoenix.
So you get the Zapdos?
No. You can have the peregrine falcon, and I'll take a phoenix.
Sweet.
That'd be cool.
Well, see, then if we go back to my pet, I don't think it would be a bat per se, but I definitely think it might be some kind of bird, because like I do call myself a bat pony, but I don't have bat wings because I don't dig the bat wings. So I have feather like Pegasus wings. So I'd have to imagine if I had a pet, it would have some kind of feathered wings. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't want to pick a raven. That seems too like emo and Edgar Allan Poe-esque.
What about an owl?
But it might be something like eagly. I don't know.
What about like an owl? Because like you'd be like a bat pony, so it's like night.
Owl would be cool.
Yeah, you could have an owl. There's many types of owls.
You get
so.
a penguin.
Penguin.
You get a penguin. It's a bird that has wings
Oh
and
my
it has
God.
feathers.
Fly.
That was fun. Can yours be a penguin?
No, a bird that can fly in the sky.
So
That'd be
good.
amazing.
I hope you're a penguin. Can't fly.
So there's your answers. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what the actual answers are because this has been a mess. But I'm sure you could find one in there somewhere, right, guys? Yeah.
Not a penguin.
Fan art away.
There already is.
Also,
Thank you,
if I may, I know what Flutterguy's answer would be, and Flutterguy's answer would be a fox. So.
Yes.
Was the ones with the really big ears?
I don't know exactly what type of fox, but
Super tiny fox, big ears.
I know that Flutterguy is a big fan of foxes, so you'd probably
Is
say
it the one that
fox.
goes ring a ding a ding 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 ding? Is it that one?
So that's it. That's all of our questions, isn't it?
On the penguins thing, I actually, when I was in Chicago, coming to Everfree Northwest, I took a photo with the penguin
Cute.
because
America.
I got called a penguin. No, because I got called a penguin. So I'm like, it's a penguin. I should get a photo with that. So that happened.
So are we out of questions?
Yeah, we are.
I have a lot of questions, but I'm gonna hold them back for now. And so why don't we step?
We still got 5 minutes.
We got 5 minutes to say plugs though. We gotta say plugs as well.
That's true.
So
Okay, plugs.
yeah,
Plugs.
plugs.
Plugs. I'm missing a plug for my sink. Anyone know where that is? Please give it to me. I need it.
So you didn't add that to the
sink.
list of plugs. Oh, while we're talking about
Yeah.
plugs, bathroom sink, bath,
Bath salts?
what other plugs can you guys think about? Anyways, just go on. Just
What
just
about like whiskey keg?
no, let's just do our video
bottle?
plugs. How about that?
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
So we have a DeviantArt page, which is cutiartcrusaders.deviantart.com. Also an email, which is cutiartcrusaders@gmail.com. YouTube, which you may be looking at right now, which is, or if not, you're on your whatever. YouTube.com/cutiartcrusaders. Facebook, which is cutiartcrusaders at Facebook. And Twitter, which is @cutiartcrusade, because that's all that Twitter would allow.
Yes, it will.
Those jerks.
So feel free to follow us on any of those sites, and
Follow, like, subscribe,
whatever the particular
term may be.
term is for each site, because they've all got to be different. And yeah, I think that's everything for this episode.
You should tweet us. You should tweet us more plugs.
Okay. As the person
Also-
whose phone goes off when someone tweets us, keep the spam to
Do
a
that.
minimum.
I would like to give a shout out
Shouldn't
to a
have said that.
particular fan,
Uh-huh.
because at the end of one of our episodes a little while ago, I asked I asked our fans to call me pretty, and he did. So shout out to him. Thank you for calling me pretty. I appreciate that.
What?
Just figured I'd throw that out there.
I don't even.
You should call me, maybe.
I don't even remember that.
So at the end of the episode, I was like, tell me I'm pretty.
Oh, did he
And
like
he did.
send you a note or something that
So he
says?
told me over Skype while we were talking.
All right then. Well, that is strange. All right. Well, that has been episode 69. So next week, obviously by the time you guys see this, it's going to be really close to Halloween. And last year, we didn't do a Halloween episode.
I was very angry about that.
This year, well, we actually like totally kind of forgot. It wasn't on purpose, but we kind of forgot. But this year, because now we can like do it the day after Halloween, so there should be a bunch of awesome Halloween pieces, which means we should have a really awesome Halloween episode for you guys next week. So look forward to that.
Does it air the day after, or does it do we record the day after?
We're going to record the day after Halloween.
Okay.
So by the time we record, because last year the problem was that I believe Halloween came out like right after our recording, so nobody put up their Halloween pieces, so we couldn't get any. But this year we have last year's and this year's Halloween pieces to go through, and it works out perfectly. So next week is Halloween, so look forward to that.
Lots of cute ponies and costumes.
For sure. All right. Oh, and why don't how about this? You guys, you're seeing this on October 29th. Within the next few days, why don't you send us some Halloween-themed questions so that we can answer them on the show next week?
Do that.
Which would be really awesome.
To our email, please.
Email, cutieartcrusaders@gmail.com. All right.
Tell me I'm pretty.
Yes, tell Bernie he's pretty, and give us some Halloween-themed questions. All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for watching, whether or not you're on the live stream or on YouTube. We love you all the same. We'll be back next week for a Halloween theme, and Flutter Guy will also be back next week, so look forward to that. My name is Rainbow Plasma.
I'm Burned01.
I'm Atmospark.
Why do you always leave such a huge gap?
Well, because I thought Flutter Guy was going to be there.
What is with you and huge gaps? Ugh.
God.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.
I'm sorry, I'm a little behind.
It to someone to give you money to live,
Well, I wasn't necessarily thinking just from a painting point of view, but I don't remember the source in which I got the information of. I might just be confusing it with the boys and girls, flip-flopping. Whoa, hold the phone. Rainbow Plasma edit time. I actually, while listening to this conversation in editing, went back to my sources and checked online to see if I could find any mentions of reds and blues when it came to past colors and wealth and poverty and that kind of thing. And this is what I came across from the website that you'll see on the screen. I added a little link shortener there so you can go check it out if you want to. It's got a lot of sources, but they basically summarize different colors and clothing over the Renaissance and medieval era. And even though there's a lot of vagaries in this is generally what people might have thought. And what it says here is that reds were usually a higher social status, such as royalty or men of justice. It meant a lot of power and prestige, and that's in the Renaissance. And even in medieval times, that was rich men wore reds. And you've got a bunch of colors down here, but when you get down to blues, I was incorrect. Blues was not a sign of poverty, and in a lot of places it meant, for example, like a young woman who was available to marry. But in England, blue was the traditional choice for slaves or servants, not slaves necessarily, servants. So people who would serve royalty would wear bright blue clothing in the Renaissance. So that was probably what I was thinking, was that the royalty is red and the servants were blue. And what Bernd was thinking of was probably an earlier time, before or early Middle Age. Yes, you could.
I'm gonna say it's the first one.
That's a pretty.
But yeah, no, we're doing Best Princess, wrong. Which is Cadance.
All right, I've wanted to do Cadance for a while just because she is my favorite princess, and obviously Best Princess. And anyone who else disagrees can be banished. So yeah, I think that this week was a perfect time to do Cadance.
She's definitely the most intricate. Just something about having the most gradients just makes you superior to others, I'm pretty sure.
Pretty sure that's how it works, yeah.
Also, it's weird because I'm really not like a pink kind of guy. There's like traditionally speaking, guys like pink is girly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just with like stereotypes and stuff, pink is girly, and so guys generally don't gravitate towards pink. But there's also like that subsection of guys that like openly proclaim their love for pink, which is cool, whatever. But I usually find that there's not a huge amount of middle ground, mostly because the middle ground is not vocal.
Yeah.
But I tend to find myself, I'm not really enamored with pink. I'm not a huge pink fan. But Cadance is really well designed, and I really like her design for some reason, even though all of her
Especially for
colors...
something that is pink.
Yeah, all of her colors are like pink, purpley pink, other pink, and yellow.
Yeah, like Pinkie Pie gets away with it because she's just absolutely crazy.
It's also in her
so
name.
she can really pull off the pink well, you know?
Because she is over the top.
So it's like being pink is great for her personality being over the top.
Yeah.
Also, since I like to talk about art history, fun fact, back in older times, pink was actually a very masculine color and a very common color among boys.
Yeah. And then it was the opposite.
Yeah.
There was also a time when pink was considered a subsection of red, obviously, because pink is lighter red, and red was a royal color. Red was meant that you had a lot of wealth because it was hard to make things that were... Hello, and welcome to episode 69 of the Cutie Art Crusaders for Tuesday, October 69th, 2013. Welcome back, guys. My name is Rainbow Plasma. I'm the organizer and editor of this podcast. And today I'm joined by...
Burn to One, the special guest coordinator and stuff of the show.
And I am Edmaspark. I do the questions and the DeviantArt page.
So...
Although I haven't done it for a while.
I almost said I was editing,
kind of behind.
so I was laughing. It's like, I'm not editing.
Yeah, no,
okay.
you're not editing. This week, I am. But unfortunately, this week we're also missing a member. We are one short. Unfortunately, Flutterguy317 couldn't make it today. I believe he had some sort of college reunion? Do you guys...
College parties.
Do you guys remember?
Nah.
Nope.
I was doing something with his sister.
We're kind of awful friends, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
Then again...
Like when you go to do like holidays with your family, it's like Canadian Day.
Yeah, I'm also talking to the same people who said I was doing something Canadian last year during Thanksgiving, so, I mean...
Well, you kind of were.
I guess so, but...
So we weren't exactly wrong.
I guess you're technically right, but it was definitely not the thought that counted. Okay, so, hello everyone. Welcome to the podcast. Do you guys have anything to say before we get into art? Because holy cow, there's like no news this week.
I played Magic. That was it.
What kind of Magic did you play, Bernd?
This is really funny to me because I brought it up before the podcast and I was like, "Hey, can I talk about this?" And he's like, "I don't have anything to say about it." And then anyway,
That's exactly
say
what
it,
he
you
said.
grumpy puss.
I played a legacy tournament last weekend on Sunday with 252 other players. It was a Star City Games Open, and I cashed, meaning that I took the top fourth or something ish. So I took top 64. I got my money back and then some, which was cool. It was a lot of fun though. Never played in like a big legacy event and done well. But yeah, that was it. It was fun. Go Magic.
Cool. So, now that Bernd has talked about his Magic session there, are you sufficiently safonsified, Bernd?
I am. I don't know what that big words means, but yes.
All right, cool. So this week we have art because we don't have a guest this week. So why don't we throw it to Bernd? Bernd, what do we have this week?
Me.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, no. The theme this week is Bernd.
Yes.
Everything to do with Bernd.
Can I do it?
Can you do Bernd?
Yeah, well, yeah, that. Can I do Flutterguy's role?
Sure. Do you want to announce the theme?
Yes. Okay, so this week's theme is Cadance. We're doing Cadance Putty because we haven't done Cadance before.
Mm-hmm.
I think this may be the first dedicated princess episode. We haven't done Celestial Luna, have we?
Princess of the Night.
We did Princess of the Night, which is technically Luna.
Yeah.
But we kind of did like half Luna, half Nightmare Moon, so red things were more expensive.
Not quite, almost.
I'm not exactly right on this, but on the same note,
almost. Go ahead, finish your thought.
On the same note, blue was considered a poorer color because it was that's kind of how it works. So it's interesting to see how colors
almost. I think I still don't think that's technically correct.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to say you're wrong because I don't know for a fact. But what I do know through my knowledge of whatever is that blue is actually a harder color to come by because you had to it was made with what? Like legitimately back in the old days, it was made like, what is it? Lapis lazuli?
I'm pretty sure you're just talking about Minecraft.
Lapis lazuli.
So I think blue was kind of a harder pigment to make. Like blue and red, I don't think they were expensive pigments. It was purple that was really considered the expensive pigment, because purple you actually had to go collect these very small bright purple shells from along the coast of the Mediterranean and then grind up these thousands of very rare shells from along the coast that you would find and then make a purple pigment from that. So since it was so extremely hard to make and actually find the materials for a purple pigment, that's why purple was considered a color of royalty. And so purple, blues, and golds were very common colors among like royalty, especially French royalty. But those are the expensive colors, and mainly purple is that one. But as far as red
Purple,
to blue,
definitely.
like what was expensive to what was like a poor color, I don't know anything that was considered a common color among poverty.
Well, I don't have a source for that.
There wasn't really back in the olden day, because if anything was being painted, you were rich. It had to do with vanity. Like if you could afford to get someone to paint something for you, or if you were painting something, you were doing